Number 3, Fight Night, Blaydes versus Volkov. That is a fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. I am Jason Floyd. Pete, it is fight day. We're 90 minutes away from this fight starting. And, obviously, I think we got to start off just talking about yesterday's weigh-ins. Only one fighter misses weight. That's Frank Camacho. He misses weight by 2 pounds. You might be able to say why that might be advantageous towards him when you're taking on someone that's likely going to want to take the fight to the ground. And the other note I'll mention is the Miller-Roosevelt fight is a catch weight of 160 pounds. I asked Roosevelt's management, I said, hey, was this always 160? And they said, yeah, always 160-pound fight. So those are two big notes coming from the weigh-ins yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, guys? Thanks for joining us again. This is my favorite part of the entire week when we're taking your questions, talking lineup construction, the weigh-ins. I didn't really see too much yesterday that made me lean one way or another. I will say that Courtney Casey looked rough on the scale again and, had to have the towel around her, the ring. And then oddly enough was like 3 pounds under, 3.5 pounds under. So I don't know what the heck was going on with that, but she needs to figure out her weight routine and make sure she starts hitting that consistently without struggling so much.
Yeah, it's definitely. I know people were kind of noting maybe where her hand placement was. Of maybe did she kind of play the commission a little bit there, Pete? But of course, we are presented by SuperDraft. It's a little bit more about SuperDraft here later on the show. But Pete, of course, everyone start firing in those questions right now on YouTube. I want to mention a question that we got on social media earlier today because I feel like some of our listeners may have the same exact question. And this came in from Travis. He goes, how do we think is going to be a higher own tonight, Lyman Good or Frank Camacho? And would it be wise in a GPP to go against the ownership?
Okay, so for me, I think people are desperate for 7,000 options, but people are also desperate for free squares. And anytime somebody's stepping up on a day or two notice and is a late replacement against a proven veteran in the UFC who has knockout ability, and they were probably favoring him in the Frivola fight anyways, I think that a lot of ownership's going to flock to Camacho. Now, do I expect that fight to be finished? Yeah. So, maybe playing the other side in James is a nice little leverage play against the ownership, or maybe avoiding the fight, completely in hopes that it goes all 15 minutes and they don't score that well. But it's hard for me to avoid that 8,000 price tag of Camacho, knowing it's going to be a striking match. James is probably going to be looking to go back to his wrestling roots, take it to the mat. But Camacho does have some submission ability as well in his back pocket. But for me, I think Lyman Good's going to be very popular, but I think Camacho's going to edge him out.
And we should note, Justin James, we did the strategy show on Thursday. We did not have a price out on him, $6,900. So he's just $100 more than Alexander Volkov. But of course, Pete, we are here to answer the questions. Hit those questions right up in YouTube. Let's start off with Jason Miller. Question 1, need one fighter, Lyman Good, Lauren Murphy, Miller, or Torres?
Okay, so let me blow your mind. I have actually been building a lot with Lauren Murphy. I really have. And I don't know if it's because I think that Lyman Good could underperform in the tough matchup against Bilal Muhammad, that he definitely has, knockout ability. But I think, I'm looking at Roxanne Modafferi's last win against Macy Barber, and it's not so impressive. It was more based on Macy Barber's injury. And I think Lauren Murphy can, negate a lot of Roxanne Modafferi's, grappling attempts and keep it on the feet. And she's pretty brutal when it comes to striking and has some good knees and everything. She just seems like a mean girl and is in great shape. So I have a decent amount of Lauren Murphy, oddly enough. That might be a sneaky little finish that she could potentially TKO Roxanne Modafferi.
I tell you, on SuperDraft, I have someone in my captain spot that you'd be a little surprised by.
All right, who is it?
Jillian Robertson.
No, I mean, that fight's tough. I mean, she is a DFS, she's an incredible DFS performer, incredible finishing ability, great takedown offense, and actually really good ground and pound. So that's not a bold call. I like that call.
One thing I do want to mention right now over on the Awesemo Twitter, we are giving away free stuff. A weekly MMA pass is up for grabs. All you got to do is like the tweet, Follow Awesemo on Instagram and leave a comment, play, or fade. And I will be announcing the winner of that prize giveaway here at the end of the show. But of course, let's get right back to questions. Jason Miller's second question: main card only, 2 stacks and fade Pennington Renault, or stack 1 and pick Pennington?
Jeez, man, you make me stack 2. I don't like stacking 1. What's this guy making me do? Thanks for the question. But if you think Volkov's tough enough to make it 5 rounds, I think that his price point makes it it's a very logical, opportunity to put him in your lineup. I really don't think he's going to last the full 5 against Curtis Blaydes. I think if you're going to stack a fight, Burgos and Emmett makes sense because it's going to be a striking affair, and maybe that fight doesn't get finished like a lot of people are thinking. It could be pretty close. Scrambling ability. Say Emmett gets cracked and he decides to wrestle. Well, guess what? Shane Burgos can scramble and reverse positions just as well. As far as stacking another fight, I don't know if I'd stack another fight, but Pennington Renault is definitely one of my least favorite fights on the card, and maybe I'll be surprised.
I want to mention this tweet from Curtis Blaydes from, I want to say this was yesterday. He says, FYI, if y'all were hoping to see a 25-minute stand-up war, you probably shouldn't tune into the main event because I fully intend on ragdolling my opponent. Just figured I'd let y'all know ahead of time. Yes, take him to take down City, as I said on Thursday. That's the way I'll point to it. Next up, we got Mike up in the super chat. Mike, really appreciate it. Says his 2 questions are, who do you believe in the prelims that will have the biggest chance for a knockout? Second question is, does Clay Guida have a good chance to beat Green with Green having some time off?
Okay, so I don't think Guida has a legitimate chance to beat Bobby Green. Obviously, Bobby Green's always in close fights. I just think Clay Guida is going to get picked apart and really has an overhand and a blast double. I think he's going to get cracked and finished with something. I think he's going to either be a choke or he's just going to get wobbled on the feet. He's not really somebody I like too much. As far as a knockout, I think the Camacho pick is a nice pick. I like Camacho, but I also like Marc-Andre Barriault at 7,600. I think that he could be going overlooked. Look, you're talking about 2 of the least talented fighters on the card, if you want to put it that way, and they're both struggling. They're both, dropping at least 2 fights in a row. So, when bad fighters on the UFC card are facing each other, sometimes finishes happen. Loser leaves town. And could I see Pahota winning a decision because he's able to take down Barriault and negate the power? Yeah, but I think Barriault does have the finishing ability.
Well, I want to mention something before we get to his first question about knockout, about Bobby Green. I'll mention a date to you, Pete.
Yep.
November 6, 2013. You know what that day was?
Last time he knocked somebody out, I would imagine.
Yes, against James Krause back at UFC Fight for the Troops #3, a TKO in the first round. Since then, when you look at his wins, decision win against Pat Healy, split decision win against Josh Thompson, and a decision win against Eric Koch. I think the only concern you have of Bobby Green in this matchup is if he doesn't get the finish. But, I don't see how you have any. For me, I won't have any shares of Clay Guida. In terms of his other question, he goes, who do we believe in the prelims will have the biggest chance for a knockout? So when you look at, to me, I look at Frank Camacho.
Yep.
Look, I think you got to look max in the opening fight. It won't be a knockout. It would be by submission, which is just as good as a knockout. Now, of course, if you get a knockout, so you get knocked down, there's those 10 points on DK. But to me, I would look at Max and Camacho, and I think there's a good chance that the Barriault-Pachota fight ends in stoppage as well.
Yeah, I agree with all of that.
Next up, let's go over to scrolling down. Russell Anderson, he goes, is Roberts worth it? Not sure if he can get the finish. I feel pretty confident about Roosevelt Roberts in a spot. I think that if Jim Miller is going to win the fight, I think it's going to be in the first round. But I mean, just go look at their weigh-in picture. You can see, the size disadvantage that Jim Miller is going to be in with the height.
Yeah, I mean, I think Roberts is a prospect within the division, and this is a very, very stiff test. And I don't think he's going to go out there as reckless as he has in the past, because one mistake, and guess what? You just lost to Jim Miller, the veteran who's been in the UFC since 2008, Jason Floyd. That's insane. So I think I can see Roberts winning 2 rounds. Does he get a finish over Jim Miller? Possibly TKO. I wouldn't really expect him to go out there and guillotine Jim Miller. Jim Miller has a great ground game, has been finished in the past and submitted in the past, but I think he's experienced enough to avoid those situations. Have moments in the fight. I don't have much Jim Miller at all. I do have several lineups of Roosevelt Roberts, but as far as the 9,000 options, he's not my favorite.
Next up, Russell says, I'm playing lots of Lyman Good. Anyone else at his price point a better play? When you look at the DK side of things, I mean, I know we talked about this on Thursday, Pete. Tecia Torres, I think, is someone that you should look at on DK.
Yeah, I mean, I do have some Tecia Torres. I think it's the girls she's facing is a newcomer. Does have some prospect within the division, but I think Tecia Torres can do enough to win a decision or at least make it close. I don't even think I have one single lineup with Van Buren, and I'm transparent with you guys. I don't think I have a single lineup with Van Buren, and it's just because Torres hasn't been finished in the UFC, and I don't see how this girl's going to come in and do it. I really don't. Torres at 7,200 is enticing, though. If she can just get 80 points, that's fine.
Yeah, I think the other one on the FanDuel side of thing, I would look at Lauren Murphy at $13.
I don't know what's up with me, but I've been taking a decent amount of Lauren Murphy, and I think she's sneaky. I'm not too impressed with Roxanne. I can't get behind Roxanne. She's proven me wrong in the past for sure, but I think that Murphy can defend everything Roxanne throws at her and then put her away.
Next up, Bill goes, does playing a smaller tournament with 700 entries change how you build lineups compared to the larger 20,000 entry tournaments?
I think in the big tournaments, you have to, get a little riskier. I think that's, pretty simple. You have to be contrarian. You have to leverage ownership and take a lot into consideration because, if you're in a big tournament, you most likely don't want to split with a lot of people. You just want to win by yourself. So in order to do that, you have to differentiate the lineup. But outside of that, I pick fighters that I like. I really don't care about the ownership. I don't care about what's a leverage play. I find fighters that I can back and I have a good gut feeling about. And then whether I'm in a small tournament or a big tournament, I place them in there and you'll be surprised at which lineups pop.
Of course, a great tool for you to check out. It is Pete's spreadsheet over at Awesemo.com. Right there, go on the MMA tab. You'll see Pete's has a bunch of stats in there: height, reach, average fight time, average point score. Something to definitely pay attention to. And also, along with the DraftKings and FanDuel scoring, he does have the SuperDraft scoring as well. Next up, Milan says Camacho was my favorite pick, but him coming in overweight was a little scary.
Not really. I like Camacho. It's a striking matchup, and if his opponent James does have, something in his back pocket, it's those takedowns that he can rely on with his wrestling background. James is very heavy-handed and likes to strike, but in a matchup like this where he took a fight on a day's notice and is going to get tagged a lot by Frank Camacho, I think he might be looking for a takedown a lot. And that extra weight that Camacho has right now could be helping him a little bit. I don't really read too much. He didn't look bad on the scale, though, Jason. I just think he looked a little disappointed in himself, but he didn't look like Courtney Casey.
No, that is very true. CS Yates says, can Barriot get a knockout or at least get like 90 in a decision?
I would hope so. Barriot before the UFC had a ton of finishes, and if you look at his record, he has fought some tough guys. So let me pull up his record. He's fought some tough guys, and I don't think that Oscar Pajota is that good. I've been saying it all week. Oscar Pajota does have a legitimate ground game, but as far as striking, he doesn't like to take a shot, and that's a big thing. Is you want to see if somebody's super uncomfortable. Barriot lost fights to Jung Young Park, Christoph Jocko, which was very close, and Andrew Sanchez. So those are 3 legitimate opponents. And I think that he could get it done against Pajota. If you tell me Pajota takes him down and controls him for 3 rounds, am I surprised? No. If he submits Barriot, that's a little unlikely because Barriot hasn't been submitted in his career. But I really think Barrio can knock out Pahota here.
Of course, we are presented by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers a contest for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo12, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. New users also get a free $12 ticket. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft. No limits, more winning. Also, be sure to follow Awesemo on Instagram and Facebook, as we'll be providing free Awesemo Plus player projections for PGA, NASCAR, MMA, and more on our Instagram page, which is at Awesemo_com, and our Awesemo Facebook page daily. So you make sure you give them a follow. We will have a free MMA DFS projection for Roosevelt Roberts posted, and it's up there right now. Just like the post, follow Awesemo_com on Instagram and comment play or fade for a chance to win a free Awesemo Plus MMA weekly pass. And of course, speaking of Awesemo Plus, many sports may be on hiatus, but Awesemo Plus isn't. Sign up today for a platinum package, which includes access to all the Awesemo Plus projections, tools, and content for PGA, esports, NASCAR, MMA, soccer, and KBO baseball. You can review your membership options by clicking the Awesemo Plus tab in the upper left-hand corner of the Awesemo.com homepage. So be sure to check out that. Mike over in the Super Chat with the question here. And Mike, appreciate your support of the show. With Burgos getting hit a lot from lack of defense, can he last 3 rounds against a powerful Josh Emmett?
I like Shane Burgos, man. I don't know if I got blinders on, but I think I'm more on Burgos because of what I've seen on film and how I feel like a ton of people are flocking to Emmett anyways because they need that 7K option. So I think they aren't taking into consideration how Josh Emmett has been behind in fights and literally throws one wild shot and catches somebody and then wins. His volume's not there. If he doesn't knock out Shane Burgos, he's going to lose the fight. And that's just my opinion. I don't think he can last with the volume. You're talking about a guy who only throws 3 significant strikes a minute, whereas Shane Burgos throws 7 strikes per minute. Obviously, Shane Burgos' defense is troubling in a matchup like this. But let's take this back, okay? Let's take a couple cards ago when we were talking about Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje, right? And we were literally in the same dilemma. And it was like, oh, Tony Ferguson has the volume. But Justin Gaethje's defense is what gets him in trouble. And then look, he made adjustments in his camp, and he was able to move, counter, and not get hit as much from Tony Ferguson. And, all it takes is a good camp to really fix some problems in your game. And I really have seen some growth in Shane Burgos over the past few fights. So for me, I like Shane Burgos. I think that he doesn't get put away. But, if you tell me Emmett does win, it's by KO for sure.
Mike, appreciate your donation there in the Super Chat. So a great way to get your question immediately read. Next up, let's go over to Ty. He says, Green and Hubbard, Barrio, Max, or Roberts, Guida, FanDuel cash.
What are you thinking?
Okay. I'll tell you what, I do not have a lot of shares of Bobby Green.
What?
So Max and Austin, this is my thing.
Okay.
I think Austin's got to survive like those first 5 minutes. I mean, look, he knows the grappling's coming. Okay. Anyone who's ever watched Max fight, what's coming. It's going to be the grappling. I think Max if he's going to win, I think he's got a good chance to win in the opening 5 minutes. Yeah. But if Austin can survive that, maybe he ekes out a decision there. I don't like Guida at all. The Guida Roberts one is an immediate scratch out for me. I would probably go Barrio to end Max.
Yeah, same here. Barrio and Max Roscoff for me. I like those in that situation. Ty, thanks for the support again.
Next question comes in from Cameron, and Cameron, appreciate the donation. He goes, who do we like the best at 15 and below and 13 and below on FanDuel?
Dang, dude, making me dive deep. Thanks for your donation. We appreciate you. 15 and below. So Barrios, nice. Lauren Murphy at 13, I really like. 13 and below. Oh, God. It gets ugly, doesn't it, Jason? I think the only person 13 and below that I would do is Tecia Torres at 11.
Well, for counting $13, Lauren Murphy.
Yeah. But, besides that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, in the $15 range, I might have one lineup with Josh Emmett in there. Here's what concerns me about the Josh Emmett. And we always talk about there's fights that we always remember about certain guys. And the Michael Johnson fight is a fight that I always remember because, I mean, yes, he gets the knockout in the third round, but he landed 22 significant strikes.
And he was getting worked.
Now, look, Burgos is definitely, he's willing to eat 2 shots to land a shot, but also very volume puncher. That's what, to me, makes that fight very interesting is you got Burgos who's going to come forward. I mean, and look at that fight that Shane had against Calvin Kattar, 2-3 years ago. I mean, now you see where Calvin Kattar is. And I mean, and, Calvin, and this being up there in the Northeast, he's a very defensive boxer. And Shane was able to, I think in the second round, I want to say he landed 40 strikes against him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think I'm hearing everybody just say Josh Emmett, Josh Emmett knockout ability. Okay, what about Shane Burgos? It's not like he has pillow hands. I really think that he's a volume guy. And, the accumulation of damage and accumulation of shots and the shots you don't see coming are the ones that, sit you down. So I think people could be surprised of seeing Shane Burgos get the TKO victory.
Yeah, it's it's something to pay attention to. Next up, Michael says Murphy or Barriot on DraftKings.
Oh, I mean, you got a coin, Jason. I think it's pretty close. Let me say Roxanne Modafferi has taken beatings from so many people and hasn't given up. She's pretty tough. Outside of a few fights where she got slammed, and then on the Ultimate Fighter against Rakosi, she got basically the wind knocked out of her, and then followed up with some ground and pound. Outside of that, she survived a lot. I think Pahota does have some striking problems, and I have seen him get knocked out and hurt and even submitted. So I guess in that situation, I like them both. I guess I'll lean slightly to Barrio, but I have plenty of lineups where I'm pairing Barrio and Murphy together.
Of course, I appreciate everyone tuning in here on this Saturday afternoon. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. That really does help us out. Next up, Anthony goes, who do you think can win in the first round?
Oh, man.
I say let's start bottom to top.
I say Max is round 1 or bust.
Yeah, Max. Modifying Murphy, like you were just kind of noting about, good chance it's going to go to decision.
Yeah.
Camacho James, I think
it's
you got to look at Frank. You got to look at Frank Camacho there. I mean, James took this fight on Thursday. If he's going to win, he's going to take the fight to the ground. Casey Robertson, we talked about this on Thursday. Casey wants to keep the fight standing. Jillian wants to take the match to the ground. And what does concern you, even though we hit Casey on her last fight, she got taken down, and yes, she pulled off submission. But if that happens here, man, she's going to be in a bad spot. Barrio Pachota, I don't think it's a first round finish. I think it's a second or third.
Yeah, I would agree. Jillian Robertson doesn't like to get pressed, and when her opponents start really throwing shots at her, she shells up. It's hard to say though, because you're seeing a lot of it from Macy Barber, and Macy Barber throws heat. So she has looked decently comfortable on the feet. I'm not really impressed with Courtney Casey, but it does seem like she does have some power, some pop behind her punches. Man, when Casey fell to her back early in the last card she fought on, I almost had a heart attack, and then she pulled off a miraculous armbar. Robertson has been submitted in the past and does put herself in some bad positions, but I think Robertson's a nice play that could dominate Casey on the mat as well.
Torres Van Buren, that's got decision written all over it.
Yeah.
Green Guida, I can see Bobby Green knocking him out in the first round, but the history of Bobby Green in his past couple of years kind of concerns you there. Miller Roosevelt, I think it's got a good chance of potentially ending in the first round. Good Muhammad to me has got 15-minute decision written all over it. Same thing with Pennington, Renault. Burgos, Emmett. I don't know if I see a first-round finish there. And Blaydes, I can definitely see Blaydes getting a first-round finish.
I think it's a night of decisions, buddy. I think it's going to be great fights, but lengthy fights. So it all depends on if you enjoy quick finishes where there's mismatches or if you really enjoy tightly contested fights. For me, I like nights like this. I get to watch some good film.
Here's the other interesting thing about tonight's fight, and Brendan Schaub has talked about this week of, as a heavyweight, you don't like the small cage when you're fighting someone wants to take the fight to the ground, and that can hurt Volkov here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I listened to an interview from Shane Burgos, and he was mentioning that, the smaller cage does help grapplers, right? But in the same way of saying that, when you get taken down, the cage is a lot closer to you to start working back to your feet and trying to back your back against it and stand back up. Whereas when you get taken down in a big UFC cage or in a Bellator cage, it feels like you're in the middle of the ocean. Like, it feels like the cage is so far from you and that you have to work so hard. And a lot of guys are only good at getting back to their feet when they're near the cage, not open mat wise.
We know you're shooting for that double leg in the center cage. We know you, Pete.
Not too many.
I always like to bust Pete's balls from his fight. What was that? February of last year. We're talking the day before the fight. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna strike. And like literally like 45 seconds in, Pete goes for a takedown.
The guy wasn't strong. So if I feel it in the clinch, man, I'm not gonna like just back away because hey, I told Jason I'm striking. I felt it and it worked. But I definitely got to keep it on the feet for sure.
We're literally sitting there talking Thursday night, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take him. I'm gonna keep this on the feet there. I'm sitting there and I'm going, what the hell's he doing?
Hey man, I had underhooks, buddy. I had underhooks.
Dude, I remember Gareth Davies was to my left. I forget. I think it was one of the guys from Junkies to my right, and I just started shaking my head. I go, what's up? I go, Pete told me he wasn't going for a takedown.
You don't always get a gift, man. That was a gift.
No, that is definitely true. Next up, Russell Anderson goes, starting to like Barrios a little. Is he 50-50 or you like him more?
So I don't have much exposure to Pahota. I was looking through a lot of my lineups, right? And when I noticed how many lineups have the same guy, I somewhat get a little nervous. So I definitely made some lineups with Oscar Pahota because this is a low-level UFC fight for sure, and I definitely see a finish happening. But I do really like Barrios. And, I think my lineups tell you that I really like him in this spot. I was big on him before he got into the UFC, and then he's been underwhelming. And then now he seems a little angry and like he needs to prove something, like he's a dog in the corner. So, give me Barrios here at 7,600.
Ty goes, is Torres a good punt for cash on FanDuel? Thinks she legit has a good chance to win and only $11. So better going her instead of having someone that has a low chance of winning.
It's hard, man, because she has dropped 4 in a row. I don't think that she's going to drop a 5th one. I think she's going to get it done here. Does she score well? I don't know. I mean, if she's priced at what, 7,000, 7,200. If she goes out there and she only gets you 60 points, she didn't do enough to make it into your optimal lineup, whether she won or not. But I have some lineups with Torres. My expectations are limited. Her toughness and her ability to not get finished is basically what made me cross off Van Buren. Like, it made that easy for me. It's like, okay, Torres is tough. I don't know if she's going to win the fight, but it's going to be close, and she's not really going to give up. So let me get rid of Van Buren for my options and, target other spots.
Next up, this goes about captain. Roscoe Down says, who would you play at captain besides Blaydes? So if we're looking on DK and you got to pay up for Curtis Blaydes in the captain spot, 14,400. And I remember I was putting a lineup together in the captains, and the ones that I was looking at Roosevelt Roberts, because even though he's 13.8, still kind of pricey, could be low ownership at that captain spot. I think there are two I was looking at was Shane Burgos and Jillian Robertson, who is Jillian not? Julian's not in the captains, so no, it wasn't. It was on. I was looking at her on SuperDraft, but to me, I would look at Burgos would probably be the guy I would lean to.
I like Burgos a lot. I'm pulling up that contest right now. Let me see. Okay. I was looking, I was trying to come up with a lineup, and I didn't like anything there. So for captain, you got Blaydes 14, Green at 13.5 is nice. Burgos at 11.4, like you mentioned, is great. Barrio at 10.5. If you notice, right, Jason, they really elevated Barrio's salary in this captain contest. Pajota's at 11.1, right? And Barrio's at 10.5. So it's almost like they realized they screwed up with the salary and that the fight's closer than it is on the regular contest. Josh Emmett at 9,900 is not bad if you think that he's going to get a knockout. And outside of that, Torres isn't terrible, but I think Lyman Good at 9K is a nice play.
Yeah, looking on the FanDuel side of the things, Julian Robinson's at $16. Max is at $16. I mean, there's some low options there. I mean, when I'm looking at captain, I'm looking, who do I think can win by finish? But then I also got to start thinking, like on FanDuel, I think Curtis Blaydes, that captain spot, is going to be massive ownership.
Yeah, so you do need the highest score on your team. I mean, that's just obvious, right? But lineup construction sometimes makes it almost impossible to have that highest score in your MVP spot. You know what I'm saying? Like the rest of it, you can have the highest score in your MVP spot, but your roster construction is not going to have all winners. I would rather have all winners with somewhat of a mediocre type of lineup where I'm not going to necessarily take down the optimal, but I know I have confidence in all the picks rather than 2 or 3 fighters that I'm reaching on. It's like I'm punting this and punting that and hope it works.
Next up, Heath had asked us about Austin Hubbard. Hubbard's a tough guy. I mean, there's no question about it. I think you like his chances more if this fight makes it into the second and third round.
I was trying to get behind Hubbard, bro. I was, and then I watched film, and I'm not impressed. I feel like he's tough, and that's what you just mentioned. He's tough. But outside of toughness, how does he get it done? Decision? Okay. He doesn't really throw too much, and everything isn't like he doesn't throw anything with like bad intentions. It's kind of more of like a point style fighting. If he wins a decision, I don't know if he really makes it into the optimal. I just don't see his output being enough. Obviously, if he reverses a few bad situations, that could change some things. He's not getting a takedown over Max. Maybe a knock. I don't know. The thing is with Max, right, there's so many unknowns. We know he's an accomplished grappler, right? He's an unbelievable submission guy, but before that, he's a great wrestler. Can he be an accomplished fighter, though? Like, when you start cracking people, it changes everything, and it changes everybody's mindset. Like, we haven't seen him face any adversity. We have seen Hubbard face adversity against Marco Madsen, where he didn't really give up. He got ragdolled, but he didn't give up. So we know his toughness is there. So that checks out. The unknowns of Max, whereas if somebody takes the fight to him and they just don't go away, that's a little troubling. But I have a few lineups with Austin Hubbard because of that, but definitely way more Max.
By the way, you were talking about the Pachota and Barrio salaries in terms of the captain's contest.
Yeah.
The biggest line movement over the last 24 hours has been on that fight and the money coming in on Barrio. He was just above plus 100 2 days ago. He's now minus 120. So it kind of shows you where the money is going there. Next up from Ryan, 2K Goat, he goes, is Burgos, Green, Roberts? Who do you guys like the most, and do you think Burgos can win the fight? Look, Burgos is a favorite for a reason. Obviously, Emmett's got that one hitter quitter. He can end the fight. If I was going to rank those three, I would rank it Burgos, Roberts, Green in terms of DFS. I'm confident they can all win, but I think in terms of who's got the highest ceiling, Burgos might have the highest ceiling just because of the volume.
Yeah, I'm going Green, Burgos, Roberts. I can't fault you for what you just said. I think Green goes out there. Maybe I'm a little hyped from the stare down that I saw of them jawing at each other, but I really think that he's going to piece up Guida and stuff some takedowns and make him desperate and just put on a show. But Guida and Green are always in close fights. So if it goes the distance, you could be looking at elevated scores.
Next up from Michael, this is on DraftKings. Blaydes and Murphy or Burgos and Robertson?
Blaydes and Murphy or Burgos and Robertson. Okay, so look at, if you're talking GPP, oh man, it's so hard. You're talking GPP potential, right? Blaydes and Murphy is nice. I have plenty of Blaydes and Murphy. It's hard for me to get away from a dominant wrestler in the main event. So it's 5 rounds with unbelievable ground and pound and a smaller cage. So kind of put like Merab Dvalishvili in the main event slot. That's basically what we're dealing with right now, right? Could you fade Merab Dvalishvili in a 5-round fight?
No, but I would tell you this. I would be concerned if the fight hit the 4th and 5th round.
Yeah, okay. I'm concerned, right? But Curtis Blaydes trains at elevation. So
I don't think this fight hits the 4th or 5th round.
I don't think so either. I'd be surprised. The worst possible thing that could happen is a 3rd round finish from Blaydes with like minimal damage, minimal takedowns, and then he doesn't really pay off his salary at $9,400. I had somebody on Twitter hit me up with a nice question. It was like, is fading Blaydes a bad play? Because what happens if he doesn't pay off? And if you look back at Julia Avila last week, right? She had the top salary, and she went out. I was underweight on her, and I probably should have had more of her, but it turned out and worked out for me. She only scored 95.5 points, Jason. So in a 1st round finish, she was not an optimal. Okay. So when I avoided her and I plugged somebody else in there, I was able to have the nice lineup. So I think you got to have Blaydes, man. Getting away from Blaydes is tough. I have a few lineups with it, but I really like that Blaydes and Murphy.
Next up from Lee, says, hey, Pete, what 3 fighters do you like at MVP on FanDuel?
What's up, Lee? Thanks for the support. We love breaking all this down for you guys. You guys are awesome. FanDuel favoring strikers, right? So I do like Bobby Green. I like Bobby Green. I like Blaydes. And I like Burgos. And I'll give you a 4th and a 5th that I like as well. I like Camacho and I like Barrio. I mean, I think you guys can see where my exposure is at this week. I'm taking stands this week. If I'm too heavy on some people and they lose, I'll be outside some money, but that's okay.
Next up from Douglas, sneakiest fighter tonight on DraftKings.
Ooh, okay. Sneakiest fighter on DraftKings. I would say the sneakiest fighters on DraftKings. I give you 3. I think it's a 3-way tie. I think Pennington's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
It should be 1A. I think 1B could be Bilal Muhammad. We're not really talking about him a lot. And if he has his regular output and gets a finish somehow, he will have a very good score. And then I think Pahota at 86. Now, I'm not backing a lot of these guys, but I think that they could be going overlooked. So they're like leverage plays. Pahota at 86 isn't bad either.
Brianna Van Buren may be someone that has low ownership. I mean, even though, look,
You have a lineup with her?
No, I don't. I don't.
Either.
I mean, look, it's when you look at, this is a benchmark fight for her. Tecia Torres has fought the who's who at 115 pounds. The one thing I think you do like on Tecia Torres is, well, she's got a training partner in her fiance, Raquel Pennington. So they've been working, and of course, Raquel being on this card as well. She could have low ownership. I've got a good amount of shares of Tecia Torres just because she's my punt play. Am I expecting her to get 90, 100 points? No, I'm not. If Tecia Torres goes out there and gets me 75, 80 points, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I can't blame you there. I did some pairing, right? And, I did some pairing based on camp. So, like, when you're trying to get contrarian with some lineups, you're kind of like trying to figure out, and especially if you hand build, like I hand build a lot, and I keep putting the same people in. So I did pair Tecia Torres and Pennington together in one. I also paired Lyman Good and Shane Burgos together in one. And, they train together as well. So I think I'm big on camps, and Team Elevation's another one. So maybe you put Blaydes and your boy Austin Hubbard in there as well. That's always, an interesting dynamic to these cards is sometimes you can ride the hot hand. And how many cards in the past have we had Fortis and we back Fortis and it works out? It's just when they have good coaches and good teammates around them, it helps things for sure.
Harley says, did Curtis cut weight for some reason? He looked a bit drained at the weigh-ins. Yeah, he cuts weight.
Yeah, but I didn't think he looked bad.
No.
I mean, hey, cutting weight ain't fun, okay? Cutting weight is not fun. And if you see somebody jumping around like Clay Guida, like all excited, he most likely didn't cut much weight at all. And he's walking around natural and just what he is. So he'll probably be undersized in his matchup against Bobby Green. Bobby Green looked humongous when he flexed. So I think that Guida's going to be pretty surprised.
Scott says, is Max a trap in the opening fight?
It could be, man. It could be a trap. And the reason it could be a trap is he just takes down Hubbard and controls him the whole time. He's so green and inexperienced as far as MMA is concerned. For grappling and wrestling wise, he has the big advantage over Hubbard. But Hubbard has fights and Hubbard has UFC experience. It being a smaller cage definitely helps Roscoff in this, and he can get his hands on him quickly. I just hope he doesn't gas himself out, and that the injury he was dealing with in camp that hasn't really led him to training hard at all, or much at all, I should say, isn't too much, and he's not hampered by it.
Yeah. Next up, some of these questions we've already kind of gotten to. Murphy or Roxanne, we talked about why Murphy.
I like Murphy.
Emmett or Good more likely to win?
I think Lyman Good, man. I think a lot of people, if you look at the odds, Burgos, Emmett, it's shown that that's going to be a stand-up fight. And based on Burgos's, I don't know, he gets hit too much. So the damage that he accumulates over time in a 15-minute fight is concerning. But I think that he can outclass Emmett. I really think the Lyman Good Bilal Muhammad fight's very close. And a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration is Lyman Good coming off of coronavirus. How does he perform? And also 2 weeks removed from his father passing away. So how does he handle that emotionally? You saw him break down at the media. And that's not always a bad thing. Honestly, it could be motivation. And if Lyman Good is motivated and he has a level head in there, I really like him. I think that he can really start to live up to the potential that he had, that hype surrounding him back in Bellator.
Chandler asks, FanDuel cash, Burgos and Murphy, or Roberts and Torres?
I say Burgos and Murphy.
Favorite underdog from Tristan?
Okay, let me look at the odds. So I can't say Barrio's an underdog anymore because he's a favorite now, right?
Yeah.
That sucks. Is Lyman Good still an underdog? Based on my odds, they are.
Yeah, he's plus 105.
Yeah, that's not much of an underdog. I'd say Lyman Good. Outside of that, Lyman Good and Tecia Torres. Outside of that, I really don't see. Is Murphy still an underdog?
Murphy, no, she is a betting favorite, minus 110.
Really? See, that's what I'm saying. The line movement's crazy throughout the week. So I would say in this situation, Lyman Good.
You look at your top 4 line movements over the last 24 hours. Barrio, Burgos, Pennington, Murphy. So those are your biggest line moves there. Next up, Arturo says, good afternoon, guys. Can we go over the whole card picks? Okay, let me just say, this will be the easiest thing for me of who I'm picking to win the fight straight up. No DFS at all. Blaydes, Burgos, Pennington, Muhammad, Roberts, Green, Torres, Barrio, Robertson, Camacho, Murphy, and Roscoff.
Okay. I'm going Blaydes, Burgos, Pennington, Lyman Good, Roberts, close though, Green, Torres, Barrio, Courtney Casey, Camacho, Murphy, Roscoff.
Of course, you are watching the live before lock for UFC Fight Night, Blaydes versus Volkov, and we are presented by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to style restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers a contest for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for the SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo12, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. New users also get a free $12 ticket. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning, and get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for tonight's MMA slate with a weekly pass for $8.95. That's a MMA weekly pass. This includes full access to Awesemo's leading fighter projections, ownership projections, and the top fighter tool. There's never been a better time for MMA DFS, so get in the game today. You can check out all of Alex's projections over there. Of course, earlier today we had a giveaway on the Facebook or on Twitter and Instagram. I'll let you know the winner of today's contest that gets a free weekly pass. It will be at Hype Gotti. Congratulations. You get the win, and people here at Awesemo will be getting in contact with you. But Pete, let's get right back to the questions. Matthew goes, who do you think will get more raw points between Roberts and Green?
I think Green, man. I think Green. So the problem with Roberts is he could be afraid to lose. He's already had it happen. So when you are facing a veteran, right, sometimes you don't really fight to your potential. You're a little gun shy because you're so worried about what the other guy can do and how the other guy can take advantage of your mistakes. If he goes out there and he's reckless round one, he can definitely finish Jim Miller. But say Jim Miller's still there, he has to worry about rounds 2 and 3 with a big proven veteran there. I think Bobby Green's going to go on there and just, put on a show, man. And I'm backing Green big time.
Ernie, with a follow-up response to that question, this is on the FanDuel side of things. Who gets more in the captain spot between Roberts and Green?
I'm still saying the same thing with Green. I'm slightly underweight on Roberts this week, and maybe he just does it too easy and gets it done quickly over Jim Miller, and he doesn't score that much. But I like the fact that Guida's tough, and Green can go out there and just accumulate stats over 15 minutes and possibly still get a finish.
Jason Duvall says, Murphy and Miller, could you guys discuss upside versus downside if only using one or the other?
Okay, so Miller, right? Miller in his last fight he got staggered by Clay Guida. Clay Guida threw a sharp right hand down the middle and hurt Jim Miller. If Clay Guida hurt you with a right hand, Roberts is going to hurt you with a right hand especially. But then he countered with a big left hand, and then Guida got desperate and shot in, and he wrapped up a nice guillotine. So Jim Miller's jiu-jitsu is legit, and his ways of finding finishes is really, really nice for the 155-pound division. Murphy on paper doesn't have too many finishes, and she's going up against an opponent who doesn't get finished too often. But outside of her toughness and her ground game, I really think that Murphy can expose her and light her up. Modafferi did have moments against Macy Barber before the injury where she did look good, but maybe that's just, I don't know, maybe Macy Barber just, underestimating Roxanne Modafferi. It looks like Lauren Murphy literally took this fight for, serious, and she looks like she's in incredible shape. I've already seen them grapple. There's a 2-minute round on the Ultimate Fighter, the tryouts, and I liked what I saw from Murphy. It's not like she was getting worked at all. So I think they know each other pretty well, and I like Murphy a little bit more than Miller. I think Miller taking out a prospect would be a big upset, whereas Murphy taking out Modafferi, that seems more likely.
Jason Miller goes, Renault's path to beating Pennington.
Subbing her, even though Pennington hasn't been subbed. But Pennington does wear damage. So perhaps she cuts her with an elbow because she does have some great elbows. I expect this fight to be taken on the cage a lot and there being a lot of clinch work. Marion Renault is the older fighter, so you have to wonder when that starts to catch up with you. I know that she's always in great shape, but she does have a good ground game. It's just Pennington's toughness and her resume might be enough to get it done.
Next up from All Things Sports Brunson, he goes, lineup construction tips. 2 9K guys, go for a more well-rounded lineup or a stars and scrubs approach? This is a great question for people who maybe are just getting, are dipping their toes in MMA DFS.
Yeah, for sure. I think trying to roster more than one 9,000 option isn't always the best. It's very tough to do that and make the rest of your lineup work. I mean, I love picking 2 and then trying to figure it out. But if you can roster one 9,000 option that is solid, then you can have that little middle ground lineup with the mid-range 8,000 and high-range 8,000 options. I think that you could be a slightly more contrarian. If you pick 2 9K options and then just fill the rest of your lineup, I think that's more chalky.
Next up, Machiavelli says, Bobby Green, 9,100 is overpriced. If he don't get a finish, he just like the point fight and taunt his opponent. And that's something we mentioned. Right. The decisions is something that's definitely got to be concerned if you're taking Bobby Green. Ty says, is Torres/Murphy too risky for cash on FanDuel?
Oh, my gosh, man. Ooh.
Ty's a big cash player.
Yeah.
It's become very clear.
Yeah. I think that's not really – I think that's risky for cash. I do. I think that's risky for cash. For cash, you want safe plays. And I can definitely see one of them winning, but both, I think you got a 40% chance that happens.
Next up from Maddie goes, the women on this card are blurring together for me.
Yeah.
Any really worth rostering in FanDuel GPP?
Okay, so of all the women fighters, you have Pennington, not really a finisher. Renault, okay finisher. Van Buren, decisionator. Torres, decisionator. Robertson is a finisher. Okay. Casey does have some finishes as well. So if you're looking at a fight that for the female divisions that might finish, I would say that is one. Modafferi, lots of decisions, some subs. Murphy has shown potential, but a lot of decisions. So of the female fights, Jason, I think the one to circle is that Robertson Casey, and I have a lot of both of them. I just wonder how Robertson handles it if, say, for some reason she can't get Courtney Casey down and it's more on the feet than on the mat. Because on the mat, she should have her way with Courtney Casey. So I think that's one of the fights you should target in all platforms.
Their question goes, do you guys think Robertson gets a finish? If she gets the finish, it's on the ground submission.
Yeah, she's not knocking out Courtney Casey.
Robinson or Murphy, I'm so on the fence. I like both, though. That's coming from Doug.
I don't know, man. I have dreams sometimes, and I start liking some people after it, and I don't know why. Because I'm trying to, all right, outthink the competition. Where's the ownership going to lie, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's look. 7,000 options. Okay, forget Volkov. Miller, Torres, not many people are going to take chances there. The people that they're going to take chances on, Lyman Good and Emmett, 73 and 75 respectively. I think that the high 7,000 options, people either pay down or pay up, and they'll kind of skip that high 7K range. And I think that's where you got some people like Hubbard could go overlooked, Murphy could go overlooked, even Courtney Casey at 7,900 could go overlooked.
Next up from Nick, he goes, Roberts or Green for cash?
Who you like? I like Bobby Green.
I like Roberts. I'm concerned about Green going 15 minutes.
I'm not. My man's got.
Lori says best value point per dollar on DraftKings.
Oh boy. I like Blaydes, man. Even though at 9,400, man, you have 5 rounds to work with. If for some reason Volkov's tough enough, you have 5 rounds to work with a dominant wrestler with a ton of ground and pound potential. I like him. Even at his high price tag. Outside of that, you got to take some shots, man.
Matthew says, who has better value between Murphy and Torres?
I think Murphy, well, obviously Tecia Torres is cheaper, right? So if she gets a W at 7,200, you're very, very happy with that, especially if she scores decent. She's facing a tough opponent in Van Buren for sure. She's just facing an unproven opponent in Van Buren. Whereas Murphy, I could see her getting a finish somehow. She's facing Roxanne Modafferi, but Modafferi does have 17 losses, Jason Floyd. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. Next up, Roscoe says, if you're playing single entries, who is your for sure captain? Gotta be Blaydes. Now, if you take Blaydes in the captain spot on DK, it is hard to fill a lineup. But on FanDuel, yeah, very, very, it can be done. Blaydes would be the guy I would look at.
Yeah, I made a few. I'm not really big on FanDuel, but I made some FanDuel lineups, and I made a SuperDraft lineup or two. And I'm excited to see, SuperDraft with the multipliers and everything. I think you guys should give it a shot. Blaydes in the captain spot on DraftKings makes life so difficult, very, very difficult. Trying to pick winners that are so underpriced, you need a lot to go right in that situation. I would say if you're doing the captains for DraftKings, you need to find a mid-price guy and put him in your captain spot that could outperform his salary and still have a loaded roster of fighters.
Corey says, so are we rostering Good or Muhammad or none?
Oh, man. Okay. Transparent as always with you guys. I don't know if I got many lines with Muhammad, bro. And maybe I'm just believing the hype in Lyman Good, but I don't know. Even if he wins, right? Does he score well? Does he score over 90 points? Most likely not.
Muhammad could score well because he does like to be a volume puncher, but he does tend to go to decision. We always talk about we're looking for finishers. We're looking to get those bonus points.
Yeah. I don't know how he's going to want to be a volume puncher against Lyman Good. I know that he parries well and he has good defense and everything, but Lyman Good needs one shot to change the fight, whereas Muhammad needs points to win a fight. I think the most shocking finish on this card would come from 2 people. Van Buren finishing Torres would absolutely blow my mind, or Muhammad finishing Lyman Good.
Yeah, that's definitely. Joshua says Murphy or Barriute. They are both decision merchants. For me, I would take Barriute.
Yeah,
just because I think the odds of a finish are much higher in that fight.
Yeah, he's facing a guy that has been knocked out and finished in the past. I don't think that the fight is as close as the odds say. I could be wrong, but I really like Barriole here.
Cameron says, which 2 of the 3, Camacho, Robertson? He mentioned Robertson twice, so maybe I'm guessing maybe one was Robertson, the other was Robertson.
Yeah. So he needs 2.
Yeah, 2 of the 3: Camacho, Roberts, and Robertson.
I like Camacho and Robertson, even though I do have plenty of lineups with Courtney Casey. I think Roosevelt Roberts against Jim Miller is going to have some. I don't know, some learning curves like throughout the fight. I think he's got to be careful.
Look at it like this. If DraftKings had redone the salaries when the change had happened, you would be paying probably $9,300 for Frank Camacho instead of $8,000.
Yeah, and that's why he's the free square of the week, and that's why I think a lot of ownership's going to be there. If you want to play ownership and leverage, you can put James in a few lineups. He does have a lot of TKO finishes, and we have seen Camacho get hurt on the feet in the past. I know that we're saying James needs to take him down. but he could change it with one shot, maybe. But Camacho, man, he's so tough, man. He's so tough. I feel like he's going to be tough to put away.
Thoughts on fading the Blaydes fight for a more unique build?
Unique is right. That will make you unique. I just don't know if it'll keep you in the money. I have a few lineups like that. I do. You need Blaydes to go out there and get like a Julia Avila performance of just goes out there and wipes the opponent out quickly, doesn't score that well, and doesn't break your lineup.
Next up, Bill, appreciate the kind words there in the chat. DH, does Guida have a chance?
You think he does? I mean, obviously, look, we're talking about fights, and it's all about who shows up that night and who can impose their will and put on a better game plan. You don't know what's happening in fighters' personal lives, and especially with the quarantine going on. How's the training? How's everything? But there's a lot to take into fighting. It's not, you can't do MMA math, and you can't just look at odds and determine winners. He has a legitimate chance. I mean, you're talking about Clay Guida, who took down Anthony Pettis religiously years ago and won a decision over him. So there was so much hype behind Anthony Pettis, and he was able to nullify that by putting him on his back. Could he do that to Bobby Green? Sure. I just like Bobby Green in the fight. Initially, I looked at Guida's price tag, and I'm like, I think he's going to be pretty popular with his takedowns, but he didn't look too good against BJ Penn, and BJ Penn has looked horrible. And, I don't know. I think Bobby Green's going to get it done.
Tim says Robertson and Torres or Barriute and Casey on DraftKings.
Oh. Robertson and Torres or Casey and Barrios. Oh, man. I would say Casey and Barrios, oddly enough.
Next up, fade the Green and Guida fight or Roberts and Miller?
I think it's close. I'm fading more of the Roberts-Miller fight just because of the scary matchup. If Roberts goes out there and he absolutely destroys Jim Miller, I'm okay with that because I think it's a smart play to take a little conservative approach in this instant. Maybe many people are taking the same approach, and Roberts could go slightly under-owned because they're realizing he's facing a true veteran that is his toughest test to date. So maybe you could get Roberts for a steal. But for me, I'm fading that fight slightly more. Yeah.
Ty asks, Roberts and Murphy or Roscoff and Barrios?
Roscoff and Barrios, absolutely. Guys, if you could do me a favor.
His only concern about Max was the tweet about that now deleted tweet about an injury that he had.
It could be gamesmanship though too. It could be just playing mind games too. You know how it is. Guys, if you wouldn't mind, if you can hit that thumbs up, get us to 100 thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. We love doing this for you.
Next, of course, we're just under 30 minutes before the first fight will start. We'll try to get in as much of these questions as we can here over the next 15 to 20 minutes. Anthony goes, if you're building one lineup, who would be a lock besides Blaydes, Camacho, and Max?
Okay. Can you repeat that one more time?
That would be building a lock